Hey everyone. So I do plan to have some more footage this week. I've been kind of distracted for a lot of time, uh, but I'm gonna try and stumble over an explanation of something I've been kicking around in my head for a little bit that I can actually do with my Project Stray project. So that's this project here, which is basically just a more modernized version of my Quake template. This is being done again from scratch, but being done properly, utilizing data tables and going through all that stuff. And I might actually start uh, putting together episodes of me just working on this, where I'm kind of explaining everything and setting it all up. Right now, I have all this infrastructure in place, and I've just been spending time thinking about stuff and planning things out. So I'm going to fail miserably, but I'm going to attempt to explain something, the leveling system that I have in mind. Alright, so all the weapons and all the armor and all the items, consumables, whatever, all have a level. Characters have levels, obviously, and when you play a level, say I make some like Doom 2 style levels, you'll have monsters that are a specific level at a specific difficulty that'll be roaming basically in that. And then I'm totally for making this like play exactly like a Doom 2 map. This is literally Doom stuff. You see my Doom 2 level? That's what I want. Like that, but in this case it'll have to be shorter because it'll be more like dungeons, and I kind of want you to play the content over and over again. But yeah, pretty much. So it won't none of the maps will be an hour long. They'll be shorter, but they'll be these bite-sized levels with find key, open door, and the monsters within these levels, depending on the difficulty that you play it at, will have levels. All right, that's all rudimentary, right? So imagine. So I'm doing a really crazy trick. You see how health is just a number here? It's just 1.0. Well, at level 100, the health will still be 0 to 1. At level 1, your health value will still be 0 to 1. Right? It scales perfectly in that sense. But I apply multiplication to a base value based on your level. So let's say every level you gain 10% health. But in reality, your health max never actually changes. So I display 110 health at level 2. And at level 10, 200 health will be your max. Under the hood, it's still 1 to 0. Well, you're probably wondering, like, well, that's kind of weird. Like, wouldn't having 200 health mean that you are, you know, wouldn't it just seem wrong? Like, it won't line up right. Like, now all of a sudden all the monsters that are shooting me are going to be doing double damage. That's the trick. So, remember what I said about all of the weapons and armor and everything like that? And everything having levels? And the monsters having levels and the player having a level? A mathematical calculation that I apply to every single monster, every single, the player, and every single item in the game and everything like that. I calculate based on the level of the player versus the monster. If the player is one level above the monster that he's fighting, he gets a flat 10% boost in damage and takes 10% less damage from that monster. So a level 9 monster will take 10% more damage and will deal 10% less damage to the player. So, this also applies to all armor and weapons consistently across the entire board. If I do this correctly, and if everything is properly consistent, then you will technically actually have 200 health at level 10. I know it sounds really weird, but using a level scaling system like this, right? You have to think about time to kill. A level 1000 player fighting a level 1000 monster will still have the same time to kill as a level 10 monster versus a level 10 player. You see? The level 10 monster will have a lot of health as well. It'll be displayed that that monster has a ton of health. But all of the numbers are also going to be multiplied as well. So how much damage I'm dealing is multiplied by my level, and the monster's damage numbers are multiplied by the monster's level, right? Are multiplied by the culmination of both levels, actually. It's going to be some tricky math. But, well, it's really not tricky. It just has to be consistent. So, with a system like that, I could actually balance a fairly complex RPG. I know it sounds really strange. It's just that naturally all of the numbers are all going to get bigger at the same time. Even in spite of mitigation being identical, everything lines up uh, to its correspondent values. A level 1 monster, a level 1 player will have a similar face-off as a level 10 monster and a level 10 player. What are the weird drawbacks of a system like this? Well, when you level up, all your gear, all your weapons and armor are going to get 10% worse. That potion that you were carrying around for an emergency, well, you just leveled up. That potion's now 10% worse. All of these things are going to be completely consistent, and your numbers are going to look like they're getting bigger and bigger. But in reality, I've changed nothing from level 1. It's all for show. And I could balance the entire game around level 1. I don't know if this is something that's been employed in too many other games. I haven't really seen systems like this. I know that World of Warcraft does sort of have things where when you level up your armor gets worse and stuff like that. You don't notice that because most of the time in World of Warcraft when you're leveling up you don't really give a shit about your armor anyway. But and of course you probably have that armor that levels with you, right? And you can wear at any level. So that hides the whole thing. But if you get a really nice suit of armor at level 30 in World of Warcraft and you level up a couple of times and you watch how much armor percentage damage mitigation that same suit gives you at level 30 to compared to level 32, that armor actually does less. It's not as good anymore because you leveled up. So it's something that's not new, but it's not something that I've seen applied in this sense. And it allows me to really fuck with things. because I can make the numbers go crazy. I could have you doing 3,000 damage every time you fire a shotgun, but in reality, all you're doing is 0.2 damage every shot. So, with that said, I hope what I just explained actually makes sense. But that's what I'm going to implement. And I know that I had done a whole bunch of stuff with Quake template, and this is a much cleaner implementation, utilizing data tables, utilizing everything to make sure that I'm not fucking things up and the redirects are being fixed, and I'm setting everything up properly so that it'll all work out better this time, more efficiently. I have a much more clean HUD with better implementation across the board on pretty much everything. Uh, I'll have my old loot bubbles back, and I'll actually be able to take things to the next step. And a lot of the scripting that I have, the complicated stuff that took me the longest to do, is already done. I'm just going to directly copy it right out of Quake template. So like the ballistics for the grenade bouncing and all that stuff, I just use it again. All the methodologies and the ideas and how I implemented things for explosions and damage calculations and damage numbers and all that, fairly straightforward. And I can easily copy a lot of those blueprints right from the old project. But I've been spending most of my time just thinking about how I could do something different, something new, something that I've never really seen, especially for an indie game. I mean, if I'm balancing things like this, then it's actually possible to make a first person shooter like Doom where you're like just constantly, there's no level cap. You don't even have to have one. You could just keep leveling up and keep finding better and better guns and seeing bigger and bigger numbers. Isn't that weird? Isn't that interesting? I could set that up and like actually have it so where you're leveling up slower and slower every time. Like it takes longer and longer to level as you level. Monsters that are below you give less experience points. Monsters that are above you give more. There's also the added weirdness of like having weapons that are different qualities and grades, armor and potions and stuff. Basically, a green, a blue, and a purple, and then a legendary. Those are items that behave like items that are above your level. Green being 1, blue being 2, purple being 3, and legendary being 4. And having a weapon with a base 40% extra damage that acts as though it is 4 levels above you, that's a fucking powerful gun. See, all of these stats are being applied universally. So I can get away with all these different tricks. You can have a potion that just like completely fills your health up or gives you insane stat boost. You can have categories like legendary boots and helmets and guns, all of the different weapons. You know, so you have an assault rifle or a light machine gun or a sniper rifle. You get a purple sniper rifle. And then on top of that, if I really want to push it, I can give them unique names based on the stats that they have. But alright, that's going too far. I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't want to fucking make Diablo. It's just an interesting idea, and I felt like describing it. I hope you enjoyed, found this interesting. I want to hear what people have to say about this idea. I know it's probably has its drawbacks, but I think its good points far outweigh its drawbacks, especially since it's something that's fairly complicated and appears to be really complicated, but under the hood is actually quite simple, which to me makes it really that's pretty meaty. That's something I could sink my teeth into. Unless I'm fucking it up. Unless I'm fucking up and I don't realize that there's some, you know, mathematical flaw to the entire thing. But I think if everything is consistent, the bigger numbers will all line up as long as it's all consistent. You can scale things up because all it is just percentages. Time to kills will be similar, and you'll probably spend a lot of your time fighting stuff that's above your level, so you'll be dealing less and less damage. Of course, when it comes to the monsters, I was actually thinking about having them all billboards. I was thinking about just so I can kind of force myself into the mindset, just grabbing the sprites from Doom and just slapping those as billboards onto the enemy types, just so that it forces me into a mindset where I feel like I'm trying to recreate that style of play. That way I'm in that mindset. I want to experiment with that. So I'm going to finish my Doom 2 level, and the Doom 2 level will be a very accurate display of how I want my levels to play in this. If this doesn't work, then what I'm going to do is probably try and do something very similar in Unreal Tournament 4, right? Or this could actually just make for a really wicked, like, marketplace thing. I'm doing everything correctly this time. I can sell this. I will not feel guilty if I sell this project. Alright, so I'm going to end it here. Expect some Doom 2 footage. I apologize for not having more content this week, but that'll change. I'll probably try and actually start doing time-lapse footage of me working on this as well. I have a feeling that this is probably going to end up being uh, my next thing where I'm going to be very distracted. Although I am getting ready to also begin doing some more Hellbreaker content as well. So with all of that said, hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Peace out.